citizen physically active. And on that, I don't have a quote, so I spare you that. Let me just say, that I welcome on stage, if I manage, next slide. Yes, it should come. Rikke Ronhold Albertsen, board member of the Danish National Olympic Committee of Denmark. If you go on the bio on the app, you see her social work as well. The fact that she's involved in the Copenhagen Business School and many other things, that we will discover in the next session, which will, of course, give us greater answer on the big question of the toolbox. So, without further ado, please welcome on stage.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I just have to say, on a personal note, thank you to Munich for being such a beautiful keeper of sporting history. I have a personal experience that I was at the European Athletics Championships in 2002, and we stayed in the old Olympic Village, and my father was at the 72 Olympics. So sometimes children talk about they're walking in their parents' footsteps, but I literally walked in my father's footsteps, onto the track and ran, and it was just amazing. And I look so much forward to coming back to another round of European Championships in 22. So that was just, sport can do amazing things. But I brought a friend. I brought my football. This is something that my friend Maiken Martin and I made in 2015 to remind ourselves that the world of sport is such an important enabler of sustainable development. And I love that this ball shows how these goals are interlinked. And if you can't really see it, but we have right here health and well-being, and what you know is right next to sustainable cities and communities. So what more proof do you need that we're on the right track with what we're doing with these smart cities and sport? I have actually once heard inactivity mentioned as the human climate change. Like, this is this slow motion disaster that we all know is happening, and somehow we can't seem to do anything about it. But I'm really honored in this Toolbox session to present you with some inspiration, some pioneers that are working to move, to get people to move, to get the hard-to-reach people to move, and are doing it in collaboration with cities. So on the stage, I would like to invite the founders from Ibitup, Miel, and if I butcher your name, I'm so sorry, Van Herr Verbeke. Yes, and Nelson Mota. And I would also like to introduce and invite to the stage Nils Lund from Novo Nordisk. Now, Miel and Nelson have dedicated their lives. They've started this nonprofit that is designed to get movement to become a part of people's everyday lives. And I think it's such an inspiration how they've created this vision for how can the urban environment become an invitation to movement. So they're going to introduce us to their invention, which you might have tried in the lobby. There's this activity bench. I totally want one for my garden, but you guys can tell us much more about how it works. Please come.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this short presentation on the activity bench and our movement project called Ibitup. I'm not sure if this is working. Okay, it's just a little bit slow. My name is Miel van Haverbeke. And this is my partner, Maarten. Maarten is the co-founder of our non-profit organization, and he's a well-known physiotherapist in Belgium as well. He's the responsible physiotherapist of the Belgian Olympic team. A few years ago, we had this idea when we were sitting on a regular bench, looking at our children, giving us the perfect example on how it should be done. We were lying down on this bench, scrolling on our smartphones like quite a lot of other parents and grandparents over there, close to that playground. That's when we realized we were the example of sitting is the new smoking, and we wanted to find something to get the people around us to become active. So we created or wanted to develop this activity bench. Fortunately for us, the city of Leuven, where we were living or where we live, was at that moment looking for ideas to get their citizens to become more active. We became one of the 7 prize winners, and we received a budget to develop this bench and the project around it. In the beginning of 2018, the first 2 activity benches were installed in the city of Leuven. For us, it is not surprising that it was the city of Leuven where our project took off, because Leuven is a city where sports and innovation really go hand in hand. They became European Capital of Innovation, they became European City of Sports as well. And in fact, we started off with 2 benches, but nowadays, only 3 years later, there are already 17 of those benches in Leuven. They call it the activity trail, and they made this video about it. As you can see, it's not a regular bench. You can still sit on it, but it makes people curious and tries to invite them to get active. It has multiple exercise stations which you can use simultaneously, and the purpose is to get a stronger and better balanced body without even noticing it. You don't need sports clothes. You can use it just the way you are, and everybody can use it, young and old. In fact, there are different ways you can use it. There's these integrated info panels which show low threshold exercises, but there's an app that comes along with it as well, an activity app which provides you an individual program with different kinds of exercises following the WHO guidelines. And then there's this possibility of following or being guided by a coach or an ambassador as well, which I will talk about later. So the purpose is to get people active using the public space, not only to create movement-friendly spaces, but to really activate it as well. In Leuven, you can walk or run or cycle from one bench to another, and you meet people, you get active, you interact, but you discover or rediscover your neighborhood as well. In fact, the mayor of the city of Leuven wanted me to quote him during this Congress. He said, "One thing is for sure, thanks to these new exercise and meeting places, the city becomes even more attractive to get active. Everybody moves, that's what Leuven is going for." Apparently, not only Leuven thinks like this. Earlier this year, we got the recognition by the European Commission as being an innovative good practice as regarding to promoting sports outside of traditional structures. And that's mainly due to the fact that we try to put into practice these WHO guidelines. We all know we have to become more active, sit less, and build strength and improve balance. And build strength and improve balance are mainly forgotten. We have to do it for a certain amount of time, a day or a week, and we have to involve those major muscle groups. Well, we try by doing or proposing all these different things around this one bench. So you have these push exercises, pull, core exercises, squat, and balance exercises. And when you go and combine them with the walking or the running or the cycling. In fact, you are doing everything that WHO asks us to do with this one bench. Important for us, the main pillars are the fact that you have to be able to use it in a quick way, because lack of time is the main reason why people aren't active nowadays. So quick, simple, targeted, and challenging. The different ways you can use it, as I told you, there's this info panel, there's an app, but there's a YouTube channel as well, giving you all those 250 exercises possible on this one bench, providing you with different workshops at different levels as well. And of course, there are these coaches. We already trained more than 300 of them. They all got a certificate. And that's very important, not only developing movement-friendly spaces, activating them as well. On the other hand, we provide not only those free courses, online courses since COVID, but we provide free workshops as well for sports policymakers. And in those workshops, we talk about all kind of different good practices in other municipalities, not only about different locations and why they fit or don't fit for an activity bench or other sports equipment, but as I told you, we already have those coaches as well, and that gives us the possibility to target or to reach different target groups, the young, the old, in schools, near clubs, near elderly facilities as well. It's very interesting to see all kinds of different people starting to use the bench and the community that's starting to grow around those benches. Nowadays, there are already, apart from the 17 benches in Leuven, there are 170 benches all over Flanders and the Netherlands, and a few abroad as well. And we dare to say that the return on investment is guaranteed, because we are investing in this hardware, but the software that comes along with it and the orgware as well. So we like to think of ourselves as a new urban movement strategy, and all of this is to lower the threshold for physical activity, so it really should be a part of daily life during all stages of life. I thank you very much for your attention.
So we had the chance to experiment this active bench in my hometown, Carouge, cute and fast-growing city with a very dense and mixed population. And if you want to increase the number of your Instagram followers, it's the perfect place. As a founder of a small local non-for-profit sport organization, I took part of this project when my hometown decided to redesign a public park into a movement hub along with the active bench. This place will be accessible for everyone to enjoy, and there's going to be physical activities, sports, leisure, and urban garden thanks to the permaculture area. Work on the site will start soon, and Carouge already provided more than 160 free classes for the whole population this last summer. So, as you might know, Carouge has been the first Swiss city to purchase 3 active benches, and the company of Miel, EPW, they trained a team of young local leaders, and including the active benches as part of the program. As you can see, we engaged with the local seniors club, providing them some classes, and at the bottom left we have this our team captain, this lady of 92 years old, who has never been to the doctor since ages, and who walks 1 hour a day at least. So we are currently launching a twinning program approach with these local seniors and our youth partners, and the mission is to at least do 2 times 30 minutes of training a week. It generates an increase of social inclusion, physical health, mental well-being, of course, and working nicely on the intergeneration approach. This is only the beginning of the project, but we are very excited with this positive service results we had so far. So thanks for your attention. Our crazy designer Philippe Führer and Timothy Pitup will be more than happy to answer all your questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And I have lots of questions, so we'll talk after. But first, I want to introduce you to Niels Lund from Novo Nordisk. Now, most of us know Novo Nordisk as a pioneer and leader in diabetes treatment, but it's maybe a little bit less well known how much energy and how many resources Novo Nordisk actually spends trying to put themselves out of business in preventing diabetes. It's actually quite spectacular. They have to have like separate departments. One would realize what the other one is doing, right? But so Niels is responsible for the global partnership strategy of Novo Nordisk, which includes Changing Cities with Diabetes, which is a partnership of over 40 cities working to change the fact that, unfortunately, when people move to the cities, they are more likely to get diabetes. And Novo Nordisk is working actively to change that. Niels also works with UNICEF to prevent childhood obesity. So I really am looking forward to hearing more about how you actually do this. Niels Lund.
So it's 1 o'clock or 2 minutes to, and you probably have a low blood sugar. So how appropriate it is to talk about diabetes, maybe just for the next 10 minutes. Actually, the main concern is not too low blood sugar, it's actually too high blood sugar, because that has a lot of detrimental effects on your body, and that is, at the core of the program called Cities Changing Diabetes that we initiated 7 years ago around the world. We are a global pharmaceutical company, so we're a private sector partner, but we're doing this partnership in collaboration with academia, social NGOs, and public organizations. Let me just, take you to the global pandemic of diabetes. So if COVID-19 was an epidemic in fast motion, or is one, then you can say diabetes and obesity, for that matter, is a pandemic in slow motion. Numbers are increasing. Part of the good story about this is, of course, we're keeping a lot of people with diabetes alive. That was not the case maybe 15, 20 minutes ago. But also there is a growing incidence of diabetes around the world, and it's related to the way that we live, predominantly in cities. This pathway is unsustainable, and that's also why we as a company are interested in trying to affect this outlook. It is, based on economic modeling and disease modeling, it is possible to change this trajectory upwards, so that we can, if in the best of scenarios, we can have a world where only 1 in 10 lives with diabetes. But if we don't do anything to curb obesity, if we don't do anything to inspire people to live healthy, eating healthy, exercising, and so on, then we are on a trajectory which I believe by mid-century will have as detrimental effects on our economies as climate change. To you, there's no big surprise here. It is all about how we live, we work, and are in cities. But I think it's interesting, if you look at the numbers, half of the world's population, or roughly above, live in cities today, but already now 2 out of 3 people with diabetes live in cities. So there's an overrepresentation of people with diabetes in cities, and that's, is a confirmation of the way that we live. It's a flip side of a positive story, because a lot of this is about economic prosperity, people moving from rural areas into urban areas, getting a job, getting a better economy, maybe buying a car, ditching the bicycle, taking the car to work, and maybe also availing of the easier meal opportunities that you see in cities, and maybe ditching some of the more healthy alternatives that were more traditional. We initiated this partnership 7 years ago with the University College London and the Steno Diabetes Center in Copenhagen, but we've also worked with partners C40 in the health and climate space, and as well with the EAT Foundation in the food and diabetes space. And what we want to do is to take a holistic view of the challenge of diabetes and obesity in cities. And here, I think, probably one of the most important parts of our program is to try to move beyond the biomedical domain. So Novo Nordisk is a very scientific-driven company. If you ask our researchers, they will know everything about what happens on the inside of the body. But as much that is happening on the inside of the body, it's very much the environmental, the outside factors that are as important for whether you are at risk of diabetes. If you don't have an education, if you live in poor housing, if you have a poor economy, if you are single, these are additional risk factors. The social and economic determinants of health are also important risk factors for diabetes. And what we're doing in this program is we kind of take we go underwater to study what is beneath the water in terms of the iceberg. And we have found through our research that social isolation is a really important risk factor. So is a mistrust in public health institutions. It's also a dominating fact in the many cities that we're operating in. And a new thing that is emerging, but is a pretty obvious one, time poverty. If you live in a city like Houston, how many has been to Houston? Yeah, it's a concrete nightmare. Endless concrete roads going like this, and people spending hours and hours commuting to and from work, to and from school, and simply eliminating whatever time you had available for exercising, preparing a healthy meal, playing with your children, and inducing healthy behavior in your everyday life. So understanding these additional risk factors is truly important because medicine alone won't solve it. So as I mentioned, we started 7 years ago. We have 40 cities, that's what the slide says, but Kiev came in over the weekend, so now it's 41. But we have a growing network of cities who are committed to changing this trajectory. They do it all in their own way. We follow globally a map, share, act, understand the science, develop their hypothesis, build a coalition around change, and then do it. So map, share, act is the same everywhere, but what is done is different everywhere, because cities are different, people are different, and the priorities are different. But we believe we have a model where we can cater to the specific needs and still drive change. And then in the ivory tower that I sit in, we try to inspire people to learn from the best examples. Working with faith communities in Houston inspires Leicester, and so on and so on. We work in the field of healthy city planning, healthy food systems, community engagement, building health literacy, but of course, obviously, and that's a bottom-up approach, we also work in the area of physical activity, Move for Fun, and we have one of our collaborators, Jakob, who will speak in the afternoon, where Move for Fun is an activity for school-aged children to build physical literacy and friendship and fun. It's not just about the physical activity, it's also about the community and finding new friendships and building self-esteem. And the other one is the Healthy Goals initiative in Leicester, with the sports clubs. They have a very successful soccer team, cricket team, rugby team, field hockey and so on. They have gone together through their philanthropic arms to cater to the very large South Asian community and help build physical literacy and also exercise with this community that sometimes is excluded from the activities. We have found that, and we call it the Urban Diabetes Declaration. It could also be called the COVID-19 Declaration, because these are 5 principles that are important if you want to drive a health initiative that is successful and also addresses some of those populations that are often forgotten when we look at improving health. First, we need to work with health promotion. We need to avoid people getting sick, so investing in prevention is important. Prevention is significantly underinvested everywhere in the world, and this certainly has to change. We need to work on health equity. I think COVID-19 has demonstrated how people at the lower end of the socioeconomic stratum have been at significantly higher risk, and that's not unlike how it is in diabetes and obesity, and a specific focus is catered for. Health must be in all policies. If I get sick with COVID and really sick, I'll go to the hospital. But it's everything that we do, masking up, social distancing, and other things. Those are things we're doing outside the healthcare sector. And if there is I think the finance ministers now get that health is in all policies, and maybe it took COVID-19 to learn that message, but I think it's really important. And the last thing I would plead for is partnerships. I represent the private sector. I can only speak for Novo Nordisk, but I believe there are a lot of progressive private sector partners who are also willing to engage in the larger societal challenges. We are focused on diabetes and obesity, but there can be others who are focused in other areas. And I think this is also the potential to to innovate, but certainly also to find new sources of funding. So if you want to be part of the journey, you're welcome to contact me, or also to tap into the online resources. We started 7 years ago with the premise that this is an open source partnership, so everything that we have, the tools, the toolboxes, the best case practices and recordings is all available on citieschangingdiabetes.com and on the big internet. Thank you very much.
Let's see. I think I got some sound. Thank you, both of you. Now, Niels, I just wanted to start with you. I'm wondering, I mean, all these, these 5 steps, like you said, it's old problems. We got to find new solutions. But how do you mobilize the resources in the cities to do these initiatives? Because none of it is free, and sometimes resources have to be prioritized. But how do you work with cities to actually mobilize the resources to push this agenda?
Let me be a little bit provocative. I think the money is there. It's about using the money in the right way. The money that is not there, that is to bring people together, to build the coalitions. The money is not there to drive the basic research that will help you frame the hypothesis of what you want to change. And the money is not there necessarily to bring the coalitions together to be able to find who has the specific assets. I think there is a treasure trove of resources and assets hidden in among the NGOs. For example, in Houston, I think I just briefly mentioned the faith community. 60% of Houstonians go to church regularly, or to mosque, or to temple, and so on. And working through these communities unlocks new possibilities to address, for example, the risks of social isolation and mistrust, because faith communities are actually places of common trust and community. So here, by building a diabetes educator program and working systematically with these faith communities, we have built something additional. And that was basically taking a new community but repurposing already existing funds. But we have, of course, provided what I would call the organizational backbone to be able to facilitate this. But in comparison to the degree of investment, it's actually quite marginal.
That's fantastic. When you're saying faith communities, I think about my own community in Denmark. We're a little bit more secularized. So do you envision, could the sporting community be the equivalent of the faith community in the United States, for example?
Certainly, and we have a very, very strong volunteer culture. Of course, whether you belong to DIF or DGI or any of the sports clubs, there's certainly some resources here. I think, and I know both organizations are working also to go into communities that are less served here and are doing really important work. But I think that might be an opportunity to link up with local community groups that also, whether it be in Tingbjerg, which is one of the more deprived areas of Copenhagen, to work there. And I know they're already doing that. But I do think that if you're creative and see if you can find partnerships beyond this, the sports and active movement community, then you might find new opportunities for partnerships and engagement.
Thank you. Now I want to pick up on something that you also said, that to Mil and Nelson. So one of the reasons that people are inactive in cities is basically that they have the opportunity to be so. So they got a car, they don't have to move. And so sometimes you get the idea that people are just inherently lazy. So you have, that's why I'm interested in, you say you have both the software and the hardware of the activity bench, because just putting the bench there, if people don't want to move, they're not going to move. So I would like to learn a little bit more about what is the software, like what is the training that, you train your coaches, you have these ambassadors, what software is needed to actually get these people to move that normally wouldn't? I think you might have, is there an extra one? Yeah.
Thank you for your question. That, in fact, is a question that is asked a lot of times. We always base ourselves on scientific evidence. And Mulier Institute, which is an institute in the Netherlands, came up with this thesis or theory of hardware, software, and orgware. What we see in daily life is that people that are not non-movers, they are not moving yet, they aren't really interested in starting to move in a sporty way. They are more like wanting to try it out when nobody is watching. They don't want to go into the public with these sports outfits. So that's one of the reasons why we call it an activity bench and not a sports bench. But you need the movers to show the non-movers how it's done. And that's one of the reasons this software is important as well. Software is the offer you create around your hardware, your movement-friendly environment. And we do so by providing these workshops. But the courses for the people to become a coach or an ambassador are really important, because in this way you can really target and reach target groups, because people following those courses are personal trainers, coaches from sports clubs, but people working with elderly as well. And that's what makes it interesting. So it's a wide variety of people and different types of people, and they can all reach different target groups. And if you combine all of those things together, yeah, you can reach a lot of people. Is that more or less an answer to your question?
It's a good answer. I'm being like stressed by this countdown clock here. I'm wondering what happens when it reaches 0. We're going to get ejected from our seats or something. I know you're all hungry. I hope that that you were inspired by this, and I think it's all those small things that we have to do to stop this human climate change, this slow motion disaster, because we actually know what to do, but it's a matter of doing it and it's great to get some inspiration for what we can actually do. So please give a big applause to our inspirers.
So discovering new things, new ways of looking at old problems, as the old last speaker said. We had a great depart this morning. A lot of food for thought, starting from Thomas Bach, who said, we need to focus on ideas and we need to cultivate those ideas, to the idea of partnership in this panel. Let me see, the next slide shall be on networking lunch. So let me remind you that it's a networking lunch. So, I mean, you're very much invited to network, I mean, because that's the philosophy of Smart City Transport. Those who cannot multitask, I mean, could do one thing at a time, but should be particularly fast and come back to the next session. I invite you all, I mean, to come back at 2 p.m. Thanks a lot. A round of applause, I mean, for the session. Thanks.